I'm a Muslim, as I said, and the way I see how humans have dealt with different ways of life in a very, very broad sense, and I might be very wrong over here, people have been dabbling with three kind of concepts. One would be the philosophical reasoning. Science, I would say, is a part of it. They reason things out and they kind of like debate over things and come to understanding by the power of their own mind.
That's what we're doing. Okay, I follow you on the first one.
Yeah, I would kind of say, listening to your videos or something, I would probably put you in this sect.
Okay.
Then there were the other ones, which are very common in my region, in the South Asia ones, which are mostly in the spiritual sense, where people kind of, rather than looking in the world or rather than looking through their minds, they look into their own selves, deep down in their souls, whatever it means. It was kind of like the spiritual revealing. Buddhism would be a good example of it, or Jainism, or other kind of things. So there is a whole lot of theology over there as well, and they have their own concepts. But then there is another one.
Well, but before we get to the third one, the second one is just a little nebulous to me. How about you, Jamie? I think
I have an idea of what he's getting at. I don't think that he. Correct me if I'm wrong, Muhammad, but what I'm hearing is that this is a thing. The spiritual one is what you said. People looking at their own self, I think, is the word you use.
Yeah, like yoga or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you would probably be able to predict that I would say that's not an accurate pathway to an understanding of the world, or to what is true about what exists. Certainly, there are things that can be learned through meditation and in your own mind and a sense of calm, but that's not going to tell you that Australia exists.
Okay, yeah, it's pretty like hip in my region, back home, but probably not so much elsewhere. It's kind of there. It's kind of getting there. There are some certain good points, and then there are certain bad ones. Personally, to me, it doesn't sound very reasonable.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. I'm actually glad that we got that one out, because that kind of helps narrow down what you mean by that.
Yeah, thank you. And then there were these third ones, which are kind of outer worldly, but they go like this, that they are based on scriptures that are said to not be from this world. Like with Judaism or even Christianity, the scriptures are based on things that are said to be not from this world, and Islam is part of that. So they're kind of like foretold descriptions of what is what, of what things are. And they have, as their evidence, they only have their teachings, and you have to look into those to see what they are or what they're not. So I largely put things into these three kind of ways. Islam is one of the third ones.
So one would be rational, one would be introspective, and not rational, and the other would be completely within a holy book. Within a religious teaching, and also not rational, but just three different places. One is, I think it, therefore it must be true. One is, it's in a book, and therefore it must be true. And one is, let's investigate, right? So, okay.
So when I get into that, and I really looked into like cross-religious studies as well. I had been doing this since when I came here, at least over the internet. Like, for instance, I read the God Delusion book from another person, and then I looked into the explanation of the creation of the universe from Lawrence Krauss. I also went into churches here in Germany. This is a cross-religious experience, and when I examined the evidence that I had been given since forever, I really find Quran to be the Quran, which is the holy book of the Muslims, to be like really believable for myself. But I don't know how it works for other people, like for the atheists or someone. Like, they put up so much critique from themselves over the Quran, but from my own, I don't get those kind of critique. Like when I look at that evidence, it really feels okay for me. So,
well, I mean, so there's a difference between whether or not something feels right and something is right. So do you have an example that we could talk about, something that is in the Quran that you think is perfectly rational that we might have an issue with? Maybe we can flesh it out a bit?
Yeah, so the first thing is that it's a narrative tradition, so it was not written down anywhere. Like today we have it in a written form, but when it came, it was like in snippets, which were not in today they're not even put in a chronological order. My point is that there are certain things, for instance, there's the mathematical miracle, which basically is something like in the Quran, the word say or the sayings like the word say is written like 332 times, and the word replies to those says, like they said. That word they said is also 332 times, but nowhere, like it's only a few times when they are consecutively in order with each other. So it's only a few times when they come up in pair.
What's the significance of that?
Yeah.
You kind of get what I mean?
No. What's the significance?
There's an intricate design in the book that makes you believe.
I would think that believable things in the book would make me believe. Help me understand why that gets you to truth.
Yeah, right. So there are these things about it, or the information in it, that just cannot be before. For instance, there's a reference to the Big Bang, a clear reference. Like it actually says that earlier in the beginning, the earth and the heavens were together and we tore them asunder.
Yeah, that's not the Big Bang. That says they worked together and we tore them asunder. You can read something into it, but that's not what it says. So the statement, it says directly that there was a Big Bang in the book. If that is the verse you're using, is patently false, right? Because you just said it says this, and then you said what it really says, and those are not the same thing. So no.
Okay.
I mean, also on that point, Muhammad, it also talks about stars falling to the earth, and it does so in a way that doesn't suggest that if a star came anywhere near Earth, like even near the atmosphere, the Earth would be destroyed and we would all be dead before it could even come in physical contact.
Right.
I mean, I don't mean to be that person to push back on this, but the same kinds of things that you're doing where it's, oh, here's a pattern with numbers, here's something that sounds like science, are done with Nostradamus, and I don't believe that that is predictive either.
Ooh, the Bible code.
Oh, yeah.
Have you read about the Bible code?
No, I haven't actually. So these kind of things are like quite regular with, let's say, theocracies. Is it?
Can you clarify what you mean by these things? Like, what is it that you're saying?
Yeah, like you put up the example of Bible code or something. What I wanted to say was that, like, it's quite regular with religions or books like these to be having these kind of associations with them, let's say.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I would say the pattern there is that there are religious people looking at the books in a certain way, and that because humans are pattern-seeking creatures, they can do that.
There was this whole thing back in the day that people would count the number of words in their space and their relation to each other in the Old Testament, New Testament Bible, and it totally depended on which version it was, because the King James version is different from the NIV, and which is different from the ESV. But for some reason, they would apply it to whatever book that they were going with, and they would come up with all of these predictions. And a lot of these people who started these cults based on, the end of the world, or, would reference this Bible code, right? There are people who think that the earth is 6,000 years old because they looked for patterns, and the pattern that they recognized that they think has significance tells them that the earth is 6,000 years old. In each of those cases, right, when people have said the world is going to end on this date, to date, have all been wrong because we're still here, right? And people who have used that methodology have not come to truth. And so the reason I bring it up is because it feels like when you talked about the word response and the word question, right, and the number and the significance of that, I can't help but think and draw a correlation between those two things. And I have to ask myself, does that reasoning lead me to truth? or does it just kind of sound cool? You know, I don't mean to be a jerk about it. I know that I can come off as a jerk sometimes, but I really like, in interacting with it, I want you to know what's going through my head, because...
Yeah. Actually, that was my point of questioning, of calling here as well. Like, for my own, I actually want to see the reasoning out of the box that actually gets you somewhere, because for myself, I'm kind of wired into it, you know?
Absolutely. Dude, I was so far in it, man, and it took so long, and I'm still trying to work through these superstitious things that I don't even know are there until someone points it out and goes, why are you doing that? So I totally get it.
Right.
But my best advice to you is to, number one, if somebody says, don't think about it, you're not allowed to, or it's blasphemy or something like that, question it, because you're entitled to answers. You should be able to know. Because if there is, you know, especially when it comes to religion, if they're saying, oh, wow, you know, your deity will be really mad at you for looking into truth, it doesn't make sense. But you can take that into other places, right? You can take that into the rest of your life. If you want to question those things, then there are ways to do it. You know, if somebody sends you an article, right? I remember one of the big ones was, and I'm sorry, I don't have a lot with Islam, I have with Christianity. And one that came up was the
what was it related to?
The Ark. It was up on a mountain. It was Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai.
Okay.
And so they would say, oh, they found the Ark. It's on Mount Sinai, and the government is trying to cover it up. And
those ones.
Yeah, and every few years, right, it would come out as like a big new article. And, oh my gosh, they found the Ark. And then everybody would kind of peter off. And then a couple years later, oh my gosh, they found the Ark. And it's been going on for like 20 years, or I'm probably longer. I don't know.
It's been periodically someone finds the Ark
on Mount Sinai.
Yeah,
like on the same mountain.
There was one where they found fossils of fish that, because of tectonic plate shifts, were at an elevation far from the sea. Therefore, the Great Flood, or whatever.
Oh, I didn't hear about that one.
That's because it was foolish. But therefore, the global flood that somehow, you know, China totally missed out on. But in its, I think actually more than 6,000 year history.
I'm screwing it up.
Mount Ararat.
It's Mount Ararat.
Ararat.
It is Mount Ararat. And thank you to the like dozen people who popped out really quick in the live chat and was like, they're saying
keeping us honest.
Yeah. I was wrong. It is not Mount Sinai. It is Mount Ararat.
No, see, Mount Sinai is the one that they all went up to ascend to heaven, or whatever.
Is that it?
Yeah, no. Mount Sinai is where you go to talk to God. That's like his office, right? Like he's everywhere and he'll talk to you whenever he wants.
Was that where Moses climbed?
Yeah.
To go get the tablets?
Moses climbed. It's where Jesus did something at one point. Jesus has been after his dad's job since the beginning, but is it someone else did something up there? I think Elijah or Elisha, one of them.
Dude, you got me, man. I'll look it up. I'll look it up.
Well, it's not. You don't have to correct me on the air.
Yeah, 10 Commandments, dude. You're so right. No, I want to look it up.
Oh no, I knew that one.
So I digress. I made a couple mistakes last week. And I just really tore myself apart. And I really don't want to come off as somebody who just talks out of his ass. I love to research, and if I'm wrong, I want to say, hey guys, I was wrong, this is what it is. Or I don't know, let's explore together. And so this is one of those times where I'm really motivated to do that. So I'm sorry that interrupted the call, but.
Right. No, I would just like to finish things up by just asking like one small thing, and what would you say someone who kind of gets whatever kind of evidence it is, but you just said like you got to keep questioning and you find you look for evidence and things like that, and I totally agree with that. That's what everyone should be doing. What if someone does find it? How would you tell them to be living their lives? Howsoever crude it is for themselves, they think that this is the evidence. How would you put it to them?
How would I put it to them that?
How should they be living it? Should they, like, once finding the evidence, they should stop questioning it, or no?
No, you should examine the evidence that you have. right? So, I mean, to determine what weight you should give as far as persuasiveness of evidence, you have to examine it critically. In the same way that, you know, when you hire someone to fix your house, if you can, you like to have a recommendation or know who they are. Just because someone walks up and says, no, I'm a licensed plumber, let me into your house to walk around, doesn't mean that you let any stranger that says that into your house. You want to know, oh, it's not just something that this guy said, you know, usually it's word of mouth, but that's everything. And
you apportion your beliefs to the evidence.
Yeah.
So if you called a plumber and then someone by the name came at the time that you had scheduled for the plumber to come,
that would be
it is much more likely, right? If somebody just knocked on your door and it's just like, I need to go look at your toilet, like...
That would be a good reason to believe.
So you need to contextualize these things, right? And how much does it matter? So the evidence that I'm going to apportion to someone who says that they're a plumber is very different from the evidence that I'm going to require for a deity.
Yeah.
Because a plumber, it doesn't matter whether somebody's a plumber to dictate whether or not, you know, morality and holy books and afterlife and all of these other things, right? And so if you have somebody who's saying, you know, you need to believe X, Y, and Z, or you go to, you know, eternal torment or eternal paradise, right? You would want a whole lot more and a whole lot more reliable evidence for that than you would.
I didn't want to question like what kind of evidence. I just wanted to get your opinion on what do you do if you have the evidence, like.
Share it.
Would you,
Yeah.
But thank you, I did get the point.
Yeah.
But also get help, because I mean, that is the process of science. Is not just I examined it, but I examined it as critically and aggressively is weird as possible, and then it's still not a thing, right? It's what annoys me so much about what I call one study syndrome, which is a new study shows. That's not news. Studies come out all the time. A study isn't a thing that you should start basing something on until it's replicated. Sorry, I got a little bit aggressive there. That was the process of bad science.
That's actually quite on point. Like, it should keep on going. It's not one shot. Thank you.
Yeah, because one person being mistaken happens all the time. I often lose my keys, but that doesn't mean that they've disappeared into a void with Jesus.
And the best evidence is that which is tested. If somebody does come across true, amazing evidence for the existence of a deity, share it out. Have people test it. Have people check it out. Because the day that happens, you know, the day that we are shown a deity, we're not going to close our eyes to it. We just haven't seen it yet. And because we haven't seen it yet, we haven't found any good reason to believe.
That's what invoked my call, basically, to your show. You know, like, had you been someone like, you know, hackheads totally believing that there is nothing like it or no, so that I wouldn't even have the courage to be putting anything out of my own beliefs, you know. It's encouragement to question. That's cool.
It really is. And when I was a believer, I had different evidences that I thought were enough to, you know, sufficient for a God. So when I would pray and when I would, you know, be in the middle of singing a song during a sermon and I'd be wrapped up in it and I'd be around all of these other people and I'd have this amazing feeling. My body is just shooting out tons and tons of feel-good chemicals, right? And I had this swelling feeling and I thought that is the Lord. You know, I thought that is, you know, the presence of God. That is the Holy Spirit within me. You know, and it wasn't until later that I realized you can get that feeling elsewhere, and that because
I could relate to that.
But at the time, it meant everything to me, and it wasn't until I really questioned it and went, you know, what if it really just is my brain sending out a whole bunch of feel-good chemicals, right? What if it's not, you know, this supernatural thing? And the more I looked into it, the more I found out, well, actually that does happen, and that a lot of religious services are situated in such a way that they provide that feeling. You know, when you go to a church service, a lot of them have, you know, ritual, standing up or call and response or singing together or everyone doing the same thing at the same time, because they're all ways of hacking into our brains and releasing those feel-good chemicals. And so, you know, there was that. And then there was you know, I thought that I remember something that happened that was super weird, you know, miracles, you know, and I thought, oh, hey, you know, I have a friend who experienced a miracle, and they're really trustworthy. They've never lied to me before, and they said that they saw something amazing. I'm going to believe them. And then it wasn't until later that I learned, oh, we actually replace our own memories. You know, we go through, and every time that we think about them, we edit them a little bit. And there have been experiments where people have said, hey, you know, example.
Yeah.
Woodstock.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead. You know what I'm talking about.
There are more people who have said, I was at Woodstock and this is what it was like. Not only than the number of people that were there, but more people have said that with their personal, oh, it was so crazy, than could have possibly fit in that physical location.
And they're not lying. They really do think that they were there, but when enough time has passed, when you go back into your own memories, you can create false memories. And that is what happens, and it's been shown to happen. And so how do you get out of that? Right? How do you know if something's true or not if you can create false memories? That's why we ask each other for help. That is why we go, hey, you know, you on the other side of the world, I don't know you, you're not invested in me, but if you want to know the truth and I think I have the truth, try it, experiment it. And the more we do that, the more we can go, okay, this is not a false memory, this is not a false positive, this is, you know, more conclusive, this is better evidence. And so that's why we do that.
It's also the most persuasive reason to keep a journal, because oh yeah, I remember that. I had that conversation, whatever. No, you didn't. You didn't tell me anything. Not you, but never mind.
Muhammad, I think this has been a really great call.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Talk about today, you can just call back.
No, actually not. Like I just looked up a few things. Besides your show, I basically got introduced to it yesterday. Before that, I was hooked up to Atheist Experience. Watched a couple of hours of it. That's pretty much it. Like I had a lot of fear about calling over here. Never ever have I ever called any show, any live program or something. And but yeah, this has been a really good experience for me as well. So thank you a lot, guys.
From us to you, we're so happy that you chose to call us, and we really hope to hear from you again. So until then, you take care, and I can't wait for you to call back.
Yeah, and reach out online if that's the thing you do. Oh, all right.
Take care, brother.
Thank you.
Bye.